Welcome to Identiverse 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio on the expo floor at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Matt Badgerow, Senior Fraud Solution Consultant at TransUnion. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. How about yourself, Adrian?
Very good.
Good.
So I'm kind of excited to get to talk about fraud today because I don't get to talk about it a whole lot. And I started my career at a credit card processor, U.S. Bank's processor, Elevon, and we just happened to be seated right next to loss prevention. So I got to hear all these amazing fraud investigation stories.
Sure.
They would pull me in, because I was chief incident handler on the cyber side, but then they had all these investigators and just crazy stories. Like,
wow.
You think, some of these like Darknet Diary stories are interesting. Fraud gets really interesting. The fraudsters are really creative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like not to celebrate the, sounds
No.
like, but it's sometimes you're like, wow, like that really took some thinking to come up with that.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting too about what I do, chasing fraud, trying to solve for cases of fraud. I liken it to basically being a police officer or an investigator, because you can solve the case, but you're never going to make it go away.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there. You're always chasing. So hearing those stories must have been very interesting.
I also feel like fraud is kind of the future for cybersecurity. Like
Absolutely.
we're very kind of, I think a lot of cybersecurity folks for a long time have been thinking in terms of how do we solve cybersecurity? I don't think you solve it. I think you limit it, right?
You mitigate it.
Yeah, you mitigate it down to a reasonable level. Like no retail company gets rid of shrink altogether.
No,
right?
you really can't. You can't. And it's, like you had said, you get it down to a reasonable level. We call that tolerance for risk.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with cybersecurity, because that's where I came from originally.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then I stepped up into identity access management, which is Identiverse. I was, last decade, I was at pretty much every Identiverse. And then I made the logical progression into fraud. What I've noticed through that whole thing is they are always looked at as separate disciplines.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that at all. They're all weaved together. It's like just, what is it, the braided rope or whatever, the three pieces of braid? It's all braided together perfectly.
And more, I talk to CISO friends and security leader friends that I have, and they now have fraud as one of the many things underneath them. Yeah, it's one of their responsibilities.
It's what takes away your reputation. It's what takes away your money, and ultimately can take away jobs.
Yeah. So you guys are talking about digital footprints as possibly the key to reducing some fraud. So I want to start off with talking about like what are examples of digital footprints? What are these elements that you could potentially use to determine fraud from legitimate activities?
Great question. Really what I look at when I think digital, I think of the way somebody is interacting, whether it's a human or not, because we have to bring that element in. If it's a human, if it's a bot, if it's a real person, a synthetic ID, how are they interacting with you? Are they on a phone device? Is it actually a bot that's doing this and it's not a device or a human at all?
Right.
What's the location at? Does the location, we go into even geolocation like IP, or if you look at the gaming industry, the online gambling industry, they can put my toes in this booth. Right now with geolocation, they have to be able to be meet regulations. But looking at those type of signals, how is that device interacting? Have you seen that device 10 times in the last 5 minutes, and is it giving you all different identity information? That's somebody mining data. We see it a lot in different industries that have pre-fill. So it's really how they are interacting with you before you even get to them. Is it a person or not? Are all these elements like geolocation, the device, the attributes of the device, the reputation of the device, and also the behavior of the device itself and the end user? How is the end user interacting with your form? Are they stopping and cutting and pasting? Is there biometrics involved on the device, or behavioral, where they're setting a phone or a device down, then picking it up, partially filling, setting it back down? There's so many signals that can be out there. I could be here for hours talking about the signals, but being able to use those little digital breadcrumbs is, I heard that as a saying a little while ago, and I love it, because that's what we're doing in fraud, is we're finding those things, and if you leave a breadcrumb trail, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want the example a lot of time with SOAR and things like that, impossible travel, like a very common thing used as a red flag. But then I think with everybody, if everybody has a VPN app on their laptop or on their phone, anybody can do impossible. Like it's very possible now, right? Like, so how useful is something like geolocation anymore as one of these breadcrumbs?
Great question. Yeah, it depends on what the anomaly looks like. Is the best answer I can give you is for geolocation. If I'm shopping in the U.S., let's use it. I'm online with Amazon all the time.
Yeah.
And most of my browsing history, which you can even look at that stuff through marketing data, most of my browsing history is in my home area, Chicago, Illinois, or at least in the U.S. All of a sudden, somebody's looking to access my account or make purchases in my name with my credit card or whatnot, coming out of Russia or coming out of China, but they're shipping them somewhere in the U.S. Turns out to be a freight forwarder or something, and they're sending them overseas. I saw this all the time, especially in the retail space last year. That's where geolocation can come in and look like, yeah, this is a bad signal. Again, it's a signal. It's not necessarily a red flag. Example: right. I have 2 teenage children that have phones. I'm very much obfuscating their IP and their geolocation. I don't want anyone to know where they are. But that raises a flag. But that's where you look at other breadcrumbs as well. It can't just be one magic bullet. You have to make a holistic view of this ID.
Well, and also it occurs to me that there is intelligence out there that can tell you, oh, this IP is a NordVPN IP.
Yep.
This IP is coming from Comcast in the Chicago suburbs.
Absolutely.
Right? Naperville or something like that.
Absolutely.
So it's like you can go a little bit, even with just one of those breadcrumbs, you can go a little bit deeper.
You can go very deep. You can go with the reputation of that IP. If it's let's use IP address as an example because everybody uses it. You can have reputational data. Is it a known Tor exit node?
Right.
Is it what ISP is it attached to? Like you had said, Comcast or whatever. What if it's attached to a Russian ISP? There's even technology out there that I know quite a lot about. I'm not going to plug anything or whatever, but I know quite a lot about where, unless it's something like a Tor browser or a really hard VPN, you can actually see around whatever obfuscation is coming up. Like some people say, oh, an incognito is going to work or something. There's technology that'll take that'll pierce that. Look at the device and say, where are you really? Give me your real IP. Yeah. So you can see if there's a mismatch. Because if that's happening, again, not indicative of fraud, but it's definitely a signal.
Yeah. So is this, you mentioned you work a lot of investigations. How does TransUnion, like what kind of services does it provide here? Is there kind of like a threat intel service here as well? Tell me a little bit more about what you guys do.
Well, a lot of it, there's a lot of different areas. We look around actual real-time fraud. So, top of funnel fraud, real-time as it's happening as I'm interacting with one of our clients' websites or mobile apps or whatever. They're analyzing my device, analyzing if I'm signing up, they're analyzing my ID information. All that's near real-time over API. We also have a lot of back-end investigation tools, and we have a whole data science team that will actually run retros for customers that are looking for, they say, I want to upgrade my identity verification. What do you have? I can give you transactions from the last 30 days. And you can see what it would have done, like how many false positives. Exactly. And if they give us fraud feedback too, we can see if we were right. See how we stack up. And we have so many different tools you can use, from rules-based to matching to ML models. And we're also working on some AI on the back end as well.
Very cool. Yeah, it's I think that's kind of the key here. Like I was talking earlier about previous conversation I was having. I got a fraud alert trying to check into the hotel, just from using my Chime credit card, and it's one of those things where you can say, yes, this is actually me, and it's like, okay, you can use it for the next hour, but there was so much delay between when I got that fraud alert and like the second and third time I tried to do it, and then when the Mandalay's check-in service sent me an email and said your credit card didn't work, I just gave up on mobile check-in altogether and just went to the front desk.
I get it.
I spent the better part of an hour, just because they weren't very timely, like these alerts. Chime, it took a good 6-7 minutes before I got that first one, and then Mandalay Bay, it took a good 10 to 15 minutes before they sent me an email. 10, 15 minutes, I've already tried to check in like 6 times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you get the alert because of geolocation, or you're trying to use your Chime card out of where you usually use it? Or?
I mean, they would have to tell you that, right?
Yeah, I didn't know if they gave you
I don't know. They don't give you a reason. They just they reach out and say, hey, this looks suspicious. Is this you or not? Which is really cool. but it needs to get to me quicker.
Well, have we got? It brings up the question of friction. Really, is that a good customer experience?
Yeah.
And that would be more on your provider. I'm not going to call out companies, but that would be more on your provider saying.
I've already named the company. I don't know who they're using on the back end, but.
But I don't either. But as far as that experience, it's all about talking. Number one, the two institutions talking, also giving you a more solid resolution.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying you have it for another hour. Well, if you were a bad guy, you could do a lot of havoc in an hour. I could drain you in an hour. I can drain you in 15 minutes in Vegas. I mean, come on, let's cash in. But making it more real time to mitigate that fraud that's where we go into authentication.
Yeah.
Is why can they destroy you a hard authenticator like to your phone? You open up the app. Hey, we have a problem here. Click here. You click in the incident's right there. You put your face up to it.
Yeah, just like a push off on MFA. Like
exactly.
Why couldn't it just be like that? You know,
exactly.
where before declining the transaction, you know, just hold it for a second. Like I don't need much time to pull out my phone and say yes or no.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. We've gotten away. It used to be. Didn't matter how much friction we threw up, as long as it was done. I've been through some bad situations over the years. Then we went down to where friction was almost nil, and they dealt with it on the back end and reimbursed you, which is even worse.
Yeah.
Now we have to find that balance again, especially with all the new attacks. I think AI-generated attacks are really driving a lot of that stuff to make it a little bit harder because it's a lot easier to authenticate. It's a lot easier to fake authentication. We've gone from just look at your phone now to actual live biometrics in some situations where you have to look at it, turn your head, and you know, say hi, whatever you need to do to show that this is actually a person and not a picture of Adrian.
Yeah. So before we wrap up the conversation,
sure.
I don't know, what do you get excited about? You know, are there any areas with fraud that you feel like we're pretty close to a solution on? You know, because of course, anytime we solve anything in fraud, all that does is create new fraud.
Exactly.
Like new approaches. Like they don't just, I guess we have to go get real jobs now, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like that doesn't happen. They just shift to the next lowest hanging fruit, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But what do you see going on there? Like, is there anything that you see potentially going away? You know, like, I don't know how much SIM swapping is involved with fraud.
It is, yes.
But you're just moving away from using phones as authentication, you know, SMS and stuff like that. Like we see, I think it was Google saying they're deprecating that.
Yeah.
You know, that's no longer going to be an option for logging into to Google. I forget what the date on it is, but the fact that they announced that, you know, it seems like that's starting to go away. Anything like that? Anything that that you see that I don't know, hopeful coming up?
Hopeful, all of it. Honestly, just be from a holistic perspective. Hopeful, all of it. It's all going to decrease, but then, like you said, there's going to be a shift.
Yeah.
What we have to do and what we need to be better at doing, which I think we have become over the last 5 years, is anticipating these attacks.
Yeah, what's that shift going to be?
I think it's going to move, since we have more data, it's going to move on prevention side to leveraging that data. Leveraging stuff that seems just innocuous now that some companies don't want to look at or say, oh, that's outdated. Number one, nothing's outdated. Make sure you're keeping up with everything because, as you said, low-hanging fruit, all of a sudden we're not looking at IP anymore. Fraudsters find something to do with that.
Yeah.
They find different ways to attack that we've abandoned because we're going somewhere else. Now I'm looking at it as you have AI on the back end, AI for fraud analytics and also fraud strategy. If you can train the model to plug in your fraud strategy with a lot of your transactions and they say, well, here's the fraud uptick, it brings out like an output that says you really need to guard here or you need to guard here. And that way you can focus your strategy. We have computing power and these engines and models that do what humans can't possibly do in real time.
Yeah.
Leveraging those technologies. The bad guys are leveraging them. Why can't we?
Yeah.
Let's leverage that. Get those analytics out there. Do them in real time. Say, I'm being attacked. I run the analytics. I run the AI. Here's the problem. Here's the attack vector. Let's solve for that right now. And then let's see what we can put in for a more permanent solution.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Yeah, thanks again, Matt, for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Very
Thank
interesting
you for
conversation. Thrilled to get to talk about fraud.
It's fun.
Yeah. And just as the last thing, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is Oh My Fraud. Have you ever heard of this podcast?
Which one?
Oh My Fraud.
I have not.
It's amazing.
I should check it out.
It's like two ex-CPAs. One of them is a stand-up comedian, so it's very entertaining.
That actually kind of sounds. I might have gotten.
And it's just every episode is a fraud story.
I might have gotten an ad for that. Somebody turned me on to Hard Fork a little while ago.
Yeah.
I've been listening to that.
Oh, very cool.
A lot of AI stuff, and they do touch on fraud quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I think I might have heard it, but I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. Please do. Yeah.
I will.
It is delightful. Thanks again for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
To find out more about TransUnion, you can visit securityweekly.com/TransUnionIDV. And for all Identiverse 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, you can visit securityweekly.com/IDV. Thanks one more time. Yeah.
Thank you.